Where's my second belt? I've already got this one.
I'm the king of Dublin. I'm the world champion.
You're the king of Dublin, yeah? You're looking at him.
Conor McGregor, the man who didn't just step into the UFC, he stormed it like a hurricane. The first fighter to hold 2 belts at once, featherweight and lightweight. A double-crown king with fists that sliced like knives and trash talk that shook the sport to its core. From hustling as a broke plumber in Dublin to stacking millions and sitting on a billion-dollar throne, McGregor wasn't just a fighter, he was a full-blown spectacle. But behind the flashy suits and cocky grin, his shine started cracking fast. Who could forget him going completely off the rails, smashing a bus at UFC 223 like he was possessed, or throwing hands at random people in bars just to prove a point? Then came his feud with Khabib, insults so filthy and personal that fans swore the octagon was the only place big enough to contain that hatred. The biggest blow came in November 2024, when an Irish court hit him with a jaw-dropping €248,000 fine for sexual assault allegations. That bombshell sent shockwaves through MMA and turned even die-hard fans into critics overnight. Suddenly, the man once seen as untouchable was drowning in scandals, with his empire shaking under his own reckless weight. Now the question is brutal.
Accused the mixed martial arts fighter Conor McGregor of raping her in a hotel in Dublin 6 years ago has won a civil case against him. The jury has found McGregor liable and ordered him to pay Nikita Hand €250,000 in damages.
Was McGregor always just a wild egomaniac drunk on power? Or did he get trapped under the shadow of the monster he built? Every move since, from hurling a steel dolly through bus windows, to flooring an old man with his left hand, to unleashing outrageous rants online, has stained his legacy. So how did Conor McGregor rocket to the top and then crash so fast? This wasn't just a rise, it was a straight-up explosion. He jumped into pro MMA in 2008, blasting through Cage Warriors with highlight reel knockouts that had everyone buzzing. By 2013, the UFC had no choice but to sign him after he iced Marcus Brimage in seconds. A knockout so quick, you could blink and miss it. From there, the legend was carved in blood and glory. He leveled Diego Brando in Dublin with the crowd losing their minds, then forever etched his name in UFC history with that insane 13-second knockout of Jose Aldo at UFC 194, the fastest title fight KO ever. McGregor didn't stop there. At UFC 205 in 2016, he demolished Eddie Alvarez, becoming the first man in UFC history to clutch 2 belts at once, champion in 2 divisions, a feat no one thought possible. And that quote, "We're not here to take part, we're here to take over," became his war chant, his declaration of dominance. He wasn't just beating fighters, he was hijacking the entire spotlight. His showdown with Khabib Nurmagomedov at UFC 229 in 2018 pulled in a record-shattering 2.4 million pay-per-view buys, the fattest cash grab the sport had ever seen. By 2025, his Instagram sat at 46 million followers, and Forbes even crowned him the world's highest-paid athlete in 2021, stacking an eye-watering $180 million from endorsements, movies, and his proper number 12 whiskey empire. But here's the twist. The same spotlight that made him a god also turned into his downfall. Behind the roar of the crowd, his swagger rotted into arrogance, and that hunger to conquer turned into reckless chaos. The breaking point came in April 2018. What followed was pure carnage, an all-out explosion of rage aimed right at his arch-rival, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Conor didn't roll up solo. He pulled up with a 20-man squad, storming the Barclays Center like a gang on a mission. They didn't just shout, they launched an assault. Chairs flying, a massive steel dolly hurled with full force, fists pounding on the bus carrying fighters who had nothing to do with the feud. The scene was straight-up madness. Windows shattered into shards, glass slicing everywhere, blood dripping across the floor while panic set in.
I've spent a lot of time, Joe, slating everybody in the company. Backstage, I'm starting fights off everybody. I've ridiculed everyone on the roster. I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the he wants. This is what I dreamed into reality. Oh, that looks good. That looks good.
We're not here to
Ray
take
Borg
part.
caught glass
We're
in
here
his
to take
eye
over.
and was forced out of his fight. Michael Chiesa ended up bleeding and coughing after getting hit and choked up on pepper spray fumes. when Conor's crew let loose canisters inside the building. Fights were ruined, careers were stalled, and the event itself nearly collapsed in the chaos. And McGregor, he wasn't hiding. He strutted through the madness, grinning ear to ear, clutching a golf club like he was headlining some twisted promo stunt. Cameras caught him barking taunts, egging it all on while the internet went insane. Millions watched those clips on repeat, shocked at how one of the UFC's biggest stars looked more like a mob boss leading a riot than a professional athlete. Cops swarmed the scene, dragging McGregor into cuffs on charges of assault, disorderly conduct, and property damage. He posted a cushy $50,000 bail and walked free, but the real sentence came from the fans and fighters who weren't buying the promo stunt excuse. I don't need a guy who's good at kicking people. I need a man who owns his mistakes. One furious fan blasted on Twitter, echoing the outrage flooding the MMA world. And it wasn't just the fans. Fighters like Nate Diaz and Daniel Cormier dragged McGregor publicly, calling him a coward and a straight-up liability. Even Dana White, the UFC boss who usually defended him, shook his head and said it plain, "The dumbest thing I've ever seen." The whole spectacle ripped apart the slick image McGregor had carefully built. The witty, sharp-tongued showman who turned pay-per-views into gold mines. For the first time, people weren't laughing at his jokes or hyping his swagger. They were watching a man spiraling, ruled by raw anger instead of control. The UFC smacked him with a 6-month suspension and a $50,000 fine, hoping he'd cool off. But Conor, he doubled down like chaos was his brand. On social media, he tried to justify the bus rampage with, "I acted on instinct to protect myself and my crew." But that weak excuse only threw gasoline on the fire. Fans sparked the hashtag #, boycott McGregor, and sponsors started quietly slipping out the back door. His empire, once untouchable, was suddenly looking shaky. Then, just weeks later, the meltdown got worse. A viral video showed McGregor sucker-punching 50-something-year-old Desmond Keogh in a Dublin bar, all because the man refused a shot of proper number 12 whiskey. One clean punch to the face, caught on camera, turned the so-called people's champ into a global symbol of arrogance and bullying. Conor used to inspire me. Now he's just a bully, a young fighter admitted in disgust. McGregor tried a half-baked Twitter apology before twisting it into nonsense about standing up for my brand. That 6-month suspended sentence and a bar ban, it didn't humble Conor one bit. Instead of owning up, he threw money at the problem, dropping $1.5 million to buy the Marble Arch pub outright, and then banning Desmond Keogh from even stepping inside. To fans, it looked like he was flexing his wallet just to dodge accountability, and the whispers turned into shouts. McGregor wasn't facing consequences. He was buying his way out of them. But the scandals didn't slow, they snowballed. Soon it wasn't just fists flying, it was words dripping venom. He mocked Khabib's Dagestani roots with racist digs, spewed misogynistic rants on his own podcast, and even called for overthrowing the government during the Dublin riots. A hate speech probe was launched and then dropped in March 2025. But the damage to his reputation was already carved deep. By June 2025, the headlines exploded again, this time in Ibiza, where McGregor allegedly assaulted a nightclub worker at 6 a.m., leaving the man hospitalized. Spanish cops opened an investigation, while Conor posted carefree party pics online like nothing ever happened. The arrogance was blinding. Every time he had a chance to humble himself, he doubled down, buying bars, flexing his power, and celebrating scandals like they were trophies. Fans who once worshipped him started flipping into an anti-fan army. Hashtags mocking him trended nonstop, and social feeds lit up with people clowning him as the poster boy for wasted potential. McGregor wasn't just falling, he was betraying the very people who lifted him up, stabbing his own fan base in the back with every reckless move. And when those cracks bled into the octagon, his supposed holy ground, the collapse of a legend didn't just seem possible, it felt inevitable. If the scandals outside the cage were cracks in McGregor's armor, the beatdowns inside the octagon shattered the whole facade. The man who once strutted as king was now limping through a spiral of his own making. An idol turned into a cautionary tale right before our eyes. It all started with the humiliation at UFC 229 in 2018 against Khabib Nurmagomedov, the grudge match that rewrote UFC history. McGregor has spent months spitting venom, mocking Khabib's faith, throwing out terrorist slurs, and even posting a photo of pig feces online to taunt him.
Tonight, our first look at body cam video from the Miami Beach police the day they arrested MMA fighter Conor McGregor. Here's CBS 4's Ty Russell.
He doesn't have anything on him, right? No jewelry.
He swaggered into the cage cocky, swearing he'd finish Khabib in the first round, but reality came crashing in. Khabib's suffocating grappling and savage ground and pound broke McGregor down piece by piece until he tapped at 3:03 of the fourth round. Face swollen, nose busted, ego in ruins. But the humiliation didn't end with the tap. Khabib vaulted out of the cage like a warrior unleashed, launching into McGregor's crew and sparking one of the wildest post-fight brawls in UFC history. Both fighters were slapped with record-breaking fines. The octagon looking less like a sacred arena and more like a riot scene. McGregor could have stayed quiet, licked his wounds, and rebuilt. But no, he kept spewing on Twitter, calling Khabib a coward, dragging the feud into a toxic, years-long vendetta. The losses piled up, and the aura of invincibility was gone. Then came the nightmare at UFC 264 in July 2021, a trilogy fight with Dustin Poirier, the same man Conor had smoked 7 years earlier. McGregor strutted in, vowing to end Dustin's career. But barely a round in, his left kick slammed into Poirier's calf and snapped like a gunshot. McGregor's leg didn't just snap, it exploded. His tibia tore clean in half, bone ripping through skin as the arena gasped in horror. Dustin Poirier was handed the TKO via injury, while Conor writhed on the mat, still spewing venom, hurling insults at Poirier's wife and family instead of facing the reality of defeat. Joe Rogan blasted the meltdown as classless and unworthy of a former champ. And longtime fans admitted the painful truth. The Conor they once idolized was gone. Even Dana White put it bluntly. Conor's not that hungry fighter anymore. He's got everything, and maybe that's killed his drive. After that gruesome break, McGregor spiraled headfirst into a lifestyle of chaos. Partying replaced training, and whispers of substance abuse got louder with every shaky video. He ballooned from 70 kilograms to over 90, muscles swelling in unnatural ways, fueling rumors of steroid cycles. Training clips with movement coach Ido Portal showed none of his trademark agility, just stiff motions and a hollow stare. Fans scrolled Instagram in shock, slurred words, twitching jaw, bloodshot eyes, shaky voice, the telltale signs of heavy drinking, maybe worse. The decline bled into his career. He pulled out of UFC 303, and by August 2025, the UFC officially yanked him from the active roster, no longer the face of the fight game, just a broken shell of what he once was.
I used to admire Conor for his fighting spirit, man. But seeing him lying there with a broken leg, still screaming at his opponent, I don't know, dude, it just felt pathetic.
Then came the knockout blow outside the cage. On November 20th, 2024, a Dublin civil court ordered McGregor to pay 248,000 euros to Nikita Hand in a sexual assault case from 2018. He claimed it was consensual, but doctor testimony about bruises, paired with a recorded post-incident chat, convinced the jury otherwise. The verdict branded him not just a fallen fighter, but a disgraced man. By July 2025, his desperate appeal collapsed, and the court slapped him with another 1.5 million euros in legal costs, citing malicious abuse of process. The price of McGregor's scandals hit harder than any punch he ever threw. Proper number, 12. The whiskey brand that once made him a multimillionaire scrubbed his face and name clean off the bottles. Sales nosedived by 40% in a single quarter, with major retailers yanking it from shelves like it was toxic. Even IO Interactive, the powerhouse behind Hitman, quietly erased his voice role from the game, cutting ties before the backlash dragged them down too. And how did McGregor respond? With a single pathetic tweet, half apology, half defense, admitting mistakes before twisting it into some bizarre claim that it was all sanctioned. That hollow attempt at damage control only fueled the rage, exposing just how reckless and insincere he'd become. But the fallout didn't stop with business. It ripped into his personal life. Dee Devlin, the woman who'd stuck with him since his broke plumber days, publicly defended him, calling the victim an opportunist. But blind loyalty couldn't shield the truth. In 2025, McGregor himself confessed to cheating on her, posting a desperate, groveling apology that shattered what little integrity he had left. No honor, no anchor, nothing to steady him anymore. The notorious persona he built on bravado and dominance was crumbling into scraps, torn apart by his own hands. The same man once plastered across Dublin walls as an Irish hero was now a pariah in his own homeland. Once a pay-per-view god, he'd become a meme, a walking joke on social media. The numbers told the story too. Followers plummeted from 50 million to 46 million. His empire drowning in outrage. This wasn't fate's cruel twist. It was self-destruction, brewed and served by McGregor himself. His saga is the ultimate paradox of success. The spotlight can crown you as a legend, but that same glare can burn you alive if arrogance blinds you. Conor McGregor was once the unstoppable Irish hero, a plumber turned UFC king. But arrogance and delusions of invincibility dragged him into scandals, shattered trust, and a spiral of self-destruction. His rise and fall deliver brutal lessons, starting with the razor-thin line between confidence and arrogance. Confidence builds champions. Arrogance burns empires. McGregor strutted like the world was his, but the law and public respect don't bow to belts. Every punch outside the cage, every insult crossing the line was a knife cutting through the loyalty he once commanded. With fame came responsibility. He wasn't just fighting for himself, but for Ireland and millions of fans. Instead of guarding that image, he flaunted his power, buying bars to flex and turning scandals into stunts. Those choices didn't just dent his legacy, they betrayed the very people who saw him as a role model. And when defeat came, from the Khabib mauling to the Poirier leg snap, he never grew from the losses. He turned them into grudges, feeding bitterness instead of discipline. Legends rise from failure. McGregor sank deeper into excuses. The final lesson, balance. Fame and fortune crush anyone without a strong compass. McGregor chased partying, substances, and excess until the grit that once made him king was gone. His collapse wasn't fate or tougher rivals. It was self-destruction. Conor McGregor lost to the only opponent he couldn't beat, himself. Conor McGregor was swallowed by the shadow of his own ego. His rise and fall prove one thing. Confidence can crown you, but arrogance will crush you. The spotlight doesn't just lift legends. It burns them alive if they forget discipline, humility, and accountability. His real enemy wasn't Khabib, Poirier, or any rival. It was the chaos inside him. He lost the fans when he betrayed their trust, lost respect when his scandals drowned out his victories, and lost his empire as brands fled, and his name turned toxic. From Irish hero to global cautionary tale, McGregor became the architect of his own downfall. This isn't just about one fighter. It's a warning. Fame and fortune mean nothing if your foundation rots from within. McGregor once showed us dreams could come true. Now he shows us how fast they can collapse. So I'll ask you this. Are the greatest wins always tied to the steepest costs? And did McGregor torch himself with the very glory he craved? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you want more deep dives like this.